You are now tuned in to Reaching Your Potential, the motivational podcast about health, wealth, business, relationships, and becoming the very best version of yourself. Your podcast is hosted by the one and only Darlene Scott, professional life coach, counselor, speaker, and CEO and founder of Basic Bliss Life Coaching. Learn more about Basic Bliss at www.basic-bliss.com.
Good evening. This is your host, Darlene Scott, and you are tuned into Reaching Your Potential, the weekly podcast about health, wealth, relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. So this is part 2 of my series on soul ties. We spoke a lot about what soul ties are and how they are formed. If you have not listened to the podcast about soul ties, please go back and listen to that podcast, and then you will be up to speed with what we're talking about this evening. So this evening, we're talking about cutting unhealthy soul ties. Cutting or severing unhealthy soul ties. And on the first part of the series, we talked a lot about what an unhealthy soul tie feels like. In our life, we create millions of soul ties. We have soul ties with our parents. We have soul ties with our lovers. We have soul ties with our best friends. So we have all these different relationships, and each relationship means something to us. Each relationship has some type of emotional imprint on us. However, as we talked last week, we talked about some of those relationships not always being healthy. And when we talk about unhealthy relationships, we're also talking about unhealthy soul ties. Relationships create soul ties. Relationships are the foundation of soul ties. You can't have a relationship without a soul tie. So it's important to look at the relationships in your life, the relationships that you have right now, as well as the relationships that you've had in the past, because a lot of us are living today dealing with things that happened to us in the past. We like to believe that we're over it. Some of us even like to say that they're over it. However, everything that has happened to us and every relationship that we have formed over the course of our lives has left an emotional imprint on us. So it's important to get down to the nitty-gritty and start talking about soul ties. Some of the soul ties are healthy, such as the soul tie between a husband and a wife that are in love with one another. That's a healthy soul tie. Another example of a healthy soul tie would be the relationship between maybe the pastor and his flock, or maybe a mentor and the mentee. So you have somebody that is pouring into another individual and building them up. And that's an example of a healthy soul tie. But tonight, we're talking about the soul ties that tear us down. We're talking about the soul ties that stop us from reaching our full purpose, our full destiny. Those soul ties that make us feel bad about ourselves or even weigh us down with depression, anxiety, feelings of guilt or confusion. So how do you break unhealthy soul ties? Well, first of all, you have to realize that a soul tie is a spiritual connection. So it's something entangled in your spirit, something that needs to be severed. So how do you disengage? How do you let go of this person? The number one thing that you want to do is fast. And I'm telling you to fast because fasting has wonderful benefits. It's healthy for the mind, the body, and the soul. And as a holistic life coach and a counselor, I am constantly talking about the mind, body and soul connection. If your body is healthy, then you can focus on your mind and you can focus on your spirit if your body is healthy. So when we eat every single day, we are using tons and tons of energy to break down food. And most of us eat a lot of processed foods and a lot of carbohydrates. So even those who have a vegetarian diet tend to eat a lot of pastas. And those that eat meat, they may eat a lot of greasy things or trans fats. So fasting not only detoxes the mind, but it also detoxes the body. So when we take the energy away from breaking down our food and we allow that energy to be applied elsewhere, we gain clarity. So instead of all of the energy in your body being used to break down that bag of potato chips that you just had, the energy in your body is being used to fuel your thought processes. It's being used to detox the liver and to detox the kidneys. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that everything that's put in the body is processed through the liver. So when you put lotion on your hands, it seeps in to your skin, into your pores, and eventually that lotion, those fragrances, those chemicals or sulfates, those chemicals go right to the liver and the liver detoxes it. So when your liver is heavy with toxins, you can experience fatigue. You can also experience brain fog. So fasting builds spiritual discipline. The goal is to pray, meditate, or work on whatever it is that you're struggling with instead of eating food. Now you have different types of fast, and I would never tell anyone to go on an absolute fast unless an angel appeared before you and told you to go on an absolute fast. I recommend that you abstain from something that you tend to overindulge in. So for example, I love sugar. I love sweets, ice cream, chocolate. I like sweet things. So when I fast, I do a fast that allows me to abstain from sugar. I will abstain from sugar. I will abstain from caffeine. And I don't just jump right into it. I have to mentally prepare myself. So I have a goal for my fast. So when you are embarking on a fast, make sure you have a goal for your fast. It gives you emotional strength and it builds spiritual discipline. Just say, I'm not going to eat this. I'm going to abstain. And whenever I get the craving or the desire to take that thing into my body that I'm used to taking in, I will work on myself. I will pray. I will meditate. I will focus on my journal, whatever it is that you're working on. You want to make sure that you have a goal inside for fasting. And for the believers, the Christians, it is important to note that fasting moves you and fasting brings you closer to God. But fasting is not moving God. Like you're not fasting to make God make something happen in your life. You're fasting to move you closer to God. You're fasting to get emotional clarity. You're fasting to cleanse the toxins out of your body. Your body is a temple. Your body needs to be cared for. It needs to be loved. It needs to be taken care of. So you're fasting because you want the benefits of fasting. And one of the benefits is that mental and that spiritual and that emotional clarity that we all need when we're making decisions. And cutting a soul tie is a decision, a conscious decision. So you're deliberately going to work on severing that soul tie, severing that connection, that negative connection that tends to pop up whenever you think you're over it, and it holds you back. So fasting detoxes the mind, the body, and the soul. Fasting gives you emotional strength. It gives you spiritual discipline. It moves you closer to God or closer to your higher power. It detoxes the liver, detoxes the kidneys, and allows that energy to be used for mental processes and spiritual processes. The second thing that I recommend is no contact. Now, some of us have soul ties with people that are no longer with us. They may have died and passed away, or they may be sick and elderly with dementia and not remember who you are or what ever happened. So sometimes we have soul ties with people that are not around anymore. So no contact is really easy if the person that you have this negative soul tie with is no longer around. However, there are occasions where you're going to have a negative soul tie with someone that you see, that you talk to on the phone, or that you work with. So the goal for no contact is to work on healing yourself. And a lot of relationship coaches out there will tell you that is the best way to get your ex back. And one day I'll do a podcast about how to get your ex back. And that is one of the tips. In order to get your ex back, you want to engage in no contact. But when we're talking about severing unhealthy soul ties, we're talking about cutting someone off for good, cutting that power off for good. Now, you can be cordial to the person, you can speak to them. They may even be in your family, but you want to take back the power. So you want to sever the connection, sever the soul tie, so they're no longer able to transmit that negative spiritual energy into your spirit. So you want to stop the connection. No contact. When you engage in no contact, you are taking time to allow yourself to heal. And you can even tell the person, if it's your sibling, if it's your friend, if it's one of your parents, and it's someone that will notice that you are not communicating with them like you used to, you might want to tell them, over the next few days, I'm going to be doing some self-work, or I'm going to be meditating and fasting, or you could say I'm going on a spiritual journey. It depends on how comfortable you are with that language. I'm very comfortable with that language. So I tell people all the time, I'm about to do a spiritual detox, right? It sounds so cool. And doing a spiritual detox essentially means I'm not for your nonsense, not today and not tomorrow. I'm in a zone right now, and I'm focusing on improving myself, improving my mental status, and improving my relationship with God. So when you say I'm doing a spiritual detox, that means I'm not in the mood for the nonsense, not today and not tomorrow. So when you embark on no contact, the goal here is to tear down the idol. Now, from a biblical perspective, God is supposed to be central in your life. So if you are a person that is a practicing Christian, or even if you are a person that acknowledges that there is a God, sometimes in our lives we make a mistake of making a human being a God. Sometimes we make a mistake of making someone central in our lives to the point where they are functioning as an idol in our lives. If you value someone's opinion so much that their ups become your ups and their downs become your downs, if you love somebody so much that you feel like you don't have any air in your lungs when they're not around, if you think about someone all day and all night and you obsess about where they are, what they're doing, who they're with, that is an unhealthy soul tie, because whatever you give your attention to, that becomes an idol. So if you give your attention to another person so much that you forget about yourself, or that you're not taking care of yourself, then it is time to tear down the idol. And one of my favorite books in the Bible is when Elisha went to follow the prophet Elijah in the Old Testament. In 1 Kings chapter 19, I believe it's chapter 19, Elisha is going to follow Elijah. And it says that Elisha, he said, I want to follow you. And what he was doing was tending to oxen. But before he followed Elijah, he went back and he slaughtered the oxen. He killed the oxen. He destroyed the plowing machines, and he got rid of all the equipment. And then he cooked the meat and he gave it to the people. And the Bible says that the people ate, and then he left, and then he followed Elijah. This story has so many different points. But right here at this point, Elisha is making a decision to follow Elijah. So he's making a decision to go a different direction. How many of us out there feel like it's time to turn the corner? It's time to make a decision to go a different way. It's time to do something today that's going to take me to the next level, that's going to allow me to walk in my purpose, that's going to allow me to live my destiny, because this person or these things or this group of people are holding me back. So if you're there in your mind, if you're there in your heart, and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you want to do something different, it's time for you to burn the oxen. It's time for you to sever the tie, uproot it. It's time for you to burn it, get away from it. And so what Elisha did is what he was familiar with, he set on fire and he gave it away. So that means there's no going back. There's no going back to that way of life. And he sacrificed that way of life to follow the prophet Elijah. And the reason he did that is because we as human beings, when we get comfortable doing something or being a certain way, we tend to go right back to the way we were. A friend of mine once said he doesn't do take-backs. He doesn't go back with people that he used to be with, because individuals tend to fall into those same roles that they used to be in the relationship. So if you're planning on walking away, turning the corner, or doing something different, you have to essentially do what Elisha did, and you have to burn the oxen, you have to burn the equipment, so that there is no turning back. So when you get serious about your life, and when you get serious about change, and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, you will sacrifice some things so you can get more of what is promised to you. If you want to reap the benefits, you have to plant the seeds. Part of planting the seeds means getting rid of all the old stuff and starting with fresh soil. So you want to tear down the idol in your life. And tearing down that idol means no contact for a period of time where you're fasting and you're working on yourself. The third thing that you want to do is forgive. Forgiveness not only releases them, but it releases you. When you learn how to forgive, there is a calmness and a peace of mind that will come over you. It's like nothing else that you can ever experience, the ability to forgive. And so, number 3, you want to ask yourself, how can I forgive this person? One of the most powerful tools that you can use to forgive someone is the feeling of appreciation. The feeling of appreciation. And you may be saying to yourself, how can I appreciate someone who treated me wrong? How can I appreciate something that didn't go the way that I wanted it to go? How can I appreciate that? Ask yourself this: what did you learn from the relationship? What has that relationship taught you? What has those interactions taught you? The more you know what you don't want, the more you know what you do want. So if you're in a relationship and you're not being treated right, or you were in a relationship and you weren't being treated right, experiencing that contrast, living that life, knowing what it feels like when you're not getting what you want, should allow you to sharpen your vision and know what you want more clearly. So getting with what you don't want teaches you what you do want. So if I need someone to hold me, I'm a person who likes a lot of touch and cuddling and hugs. If I'm in a relationship and I'm deprived of that and I'm not getting that and I'm getting the complete opposite of that, then I know going forward, I am a person that needs that sense of touch. So that person, by ignoring me and by depriving me of touch, has taught me something about myself. They have taught me that I desire touch, or I require touch in a relationship to feel valued. Now, when you look at all of the bad things you've been through, all of the trials, all of the tribulations, everything that you have been through has done nothing but prepare you for your destiny. It's molded you. If you take into consideration all of the negative experiences that you had over the course of your life, and then you try to take from each experience something that you learned about yourself, you would have a whole composition book. If you sat back and you said, what did that relationship teach me about patience? What did that relationship teach me about kindness? What did that relationship teach me about my selfishness? What did that relationship teach me about myself? You can learn to appreciate the experience, appreciate the relationship. And right there, you're able to forgive. And when you start to forgive, you can start to move on. So number one, you want to fast because it detoxes the mind, the body, and the spirit. Number two, you want to have no contact. You want to tear down the idol. You want to take the person off of the throne of your heart. You want to put God on the throne of your heart. Or you want to take that person off the throne of your heart and put yourself on the throne of your heart. Maybe you need self-love. Maybe it's time that you were just a tad bit selfish. Maybe it's time you paid attention to what you're feeling. Maybe it's time. So I just wanted to tell you, fasting, no contact, forgiveness, and in working towards forgiveness, what do you appreciate about the person? What do you appreciate about the relationship? How did it push you towards your greater good and make you a better person? And the fourth thing, meditation and prayer. From a biblical perspective, fasting and prayer has so much power. Matthew 17:20 talks about when the disciples, they come to Jesus and they say all day long, we've been trying to cast this spirit out of this boy, because the boy was demon possessed. He was being tormented. And they go to Jesus and they tell him that they couldn't cast the spirit out. And Jesus tells them straight up, this one doesn't go out. This one doesn't go out by prayer alone, but by prayer and fasting. So what he's saying to you is that you have this tool, you have this ability to pray, and you have this ability to fast. And praying and fasting in combination is a very, very powerful tool to expel spirits, to get rid of negative energy. So from a non-biblical perspective, meditation and fasting, being able to calm your mind, calming your mind down to the point where you can hear that inner voice whisper to you. Psalms 131 says, surely I have calmed and quieted my soul like a weaned child from his mother. So just like calming your soul, weaning yourself off of that person and calming your soul. So number one, fast, because it detoxes the mind, the body, and the spirit. Number two, no contact. And this is for a set period of time, for the period of time that you determine. No one can tell you how long you need to do this self-work. On average, it takes about 7 to 14 days before you can start to really release someone and be able to forgive them, especially if it's someone that put you through a lot of hurt and pain in your life. So no contact. Number 3, forgiveness. What did I learn from this relationship? How can I appreciate this experience? Number 4, praying or meditating. Either way, if you want to meditate, and think to yourself, I am peace. I am calm. I am one with life. I am love. I love myself. And a lot of times you can do a love meditation. I am going to be posting some guided meditations online, which I think that people will find really helpful. I did a group today and we did a beautiful guided meditation where we focused on releasing tension from the body. And one of my group members shared with me that this would be something that they would love to listen to every day after work for 10 minutes. So I am going to post some guided meditations. But right now, that's it for tonight. I'm looking at the time and it looks like I went over, but I gave you your tools. I gave you 4 things that you can do to cut those unhealthy soul ties or those ungodly soul ties. You fast, you engage in no contact, you practice forgiveness, and most of all, you want to meditate and you want to pray. Or you want to just send positive energy out there into the universe and just be in love with yourself for a while. So I hope this podcast was informative and helpful. And everyone out there, please subscribe and like my video and share it as much as you want. And I will talk to you next week. Have a very blessed evening.